They're not the only ones breathing a sigh of relief. The PIC inquiry, hearing today from businessman Jayendra Naidoo, his company Lancaster receiving 9.3 billion rand from the PIC to invest in Steinhoff. It's also the end of that inquiry. Heidi Jokos has been there from the get-go. So Heidi, good afternoon to you. First of all, lots of focus today on Steinhoff and Lancaster and the PIC. A lot of questions around this and whether this deal was done according to the rules, to the book.
Exactly, because you have a situation where the PIC has pumped in 9.3 billion rand into Steinhoff. Of course, that was done via Lancaster, Jayendra Naidoo being the CEO of Lancaster Group, who approached the PIC for that investment into Steinhoff. But today it was very technical. We heard from Jayendra Naidoo speaking about the structure of the deal. The deal seems to have done in a very sophisticated manner to ensure that that investment went according to the book, went according to all the rules and regulations. This is something, of course, the opposite to what we've been hearing throughout this inquiry about how certain investments weren't done properly, weren't done according to PIC policy, due diligence was not followed. And because the PIC has lost so much throughout the Steinhoff investment, the big question was that investment even properly done in the first place? All right.
Connect some dots for me now. Also questions around advisory fees paid to a Symphony Capital, something in the region of, what, 20-odd million rand?
Yes, actually, so Symphony Capital was the advisory firm that was hired to assist Jayendra Naidoo's company, Lancaster.
So it's the facilitator, in other words?
Yes, basically, to invest into Steinhoff International. And that was actually to the tune of 76 million rand that was paid over. And of course, Jill Marcus, who's assistant to the commissioner at the PIC inquiry, questioning this and saying, why were the transaction fees and the advisory fees so high? And it seems as though the definition and the explanation given by Jayendra Naidoo is that because the deal was so complex, it had to be, the advisory fees had to be so high because of the assistance and the support that it had received and the magnitude of the investment deal. But the issue here is that 22 million rand was paid over to Lancaster by the PIC because of this investment deal, and that is where the big question comes in. Why was that money paid over? And Jayendra Naidoo basically saying, well, that money was in good faith. It was owed to Lancaster because there was some kind of money left over from the investment, and the PIC found it necessary to pay that over rather to Jayendra Naidoo to the tune of 22 million rand.
So the words that spring to mind then are checks and balances, security, due diligence. Surely this would have been in place?
Exactly. So when such a big investment happens to the tune of 9.3 billion rand into Steinhoff International, there needs to be some kind of security package for the PIC, given the fact that they're pumping so much money into Steinhoff, they're investing so much money into Steinhoff. So there was a security package. It was over about 6 billion rand, and Steinhoff International approached the PIC a couple of months later after investing into Steinhoff International and said, why don't you invest into Steinhoff Africa, which is known as STAR? And the PIC and Lancaster agreed to that, and that's when they created Lancaster 102. And they used that surety money, that security package, to invest into Steinhoff Africa. And this is a couple of months later, this is when that big corporate scandal happened with Steinhoff International, and the PIC lost all that surety money because they had used that money to invest into Steinhoff Africa. Right now, the PIC has lost over 11 billion rand. The money that they invested into Steinhoff International and the money invested into STAR, as well as the interest incurred.
Well, that's a very long preamble to some video that you've brought back with you.
Yes.
So what are we going to see?
Yes, so actually we're going to listen to what Jayendra Naidoo has to say about that money being used, the security package money being used to invest into Steinhoff Africa.
Here we go.
In hindsight, with the effect of the what is now widely understood to be the biggest corporate fraud in South African history, PIC sacrificed something which at the time did not look material. To protect against the downside looked like a lesser objective compared to getting more of the upside. But in hindsight, if we had an ability to see into the fraud, then we would have valued the protection more highly, and the PIC would have valued the protection more highly.
All right, are we done now? What are you going to do with your days?
I need to find a diary now because I've been doing PIC for 7 months, but it might not be over yet. I can't disclose too much, but we might be back mid-September for cross-examination of Dan Machila.
All right, Heidi Jokos, thank you.